Hi everyone, I'm Isabel Sparrow. I'm Communications Manager at Carbon Copy. Welcome to the first in Carbon Copy's new Instagram Live series. This week we are going to be getting to know Ric Casale, founder and trustee of Carbon Copy. So I will just let Ric into the chat and then we'll get going. Letting him in now. It takes a few minutes to join.
Hello.
Hi,
Izzy.
Ric.
How are you?
Hi, I'm very good. How are you, Ric?
Good to see you virtually,
Good
but
to
good
see
to see you
you.
nonetheless.
Absolutely. So let's get going. Let's find out a bit more about you.
Yeah.
So obviously we already know each other a bit, but just for the benefit of the audience, it would be great if you could just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, of course. Um, well, just by way of a bit of background, I would say for probably the best part of almost 10 years now, I've been working on the Internet of Things and really figuring out how to make products more interactive with people and places. And that's a really interesting space to be in because it's got lots of potential in terms of having a positive environmental benefit, reducing waste, increasing efficiency. And that work that I've been doing has kind of led me to wanting to do more in this space. And it was kind of like a little bit of what led me towards Carbon Copy. I think
Right.
there's another couple of things as well. One was I wrote a book, which I can talk a little bit about if you want, which also informed some of the thinking. And also, and I think this is a really important bit of experience that I had, um, I was quite involved in a local community group called the Climate Emergency Coalition. And we were working to encourage our council to declare a climate emergency.
Mhm.
Which they did, which is great, back in, I think it was June of last year. And I think living through that experience and trying to figure out how to work together with different groups also helped inform the need that we have for something like Carbon Copy.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I think, you know, the book is definitely something that I'd like to talk
Yeah.
about. So, yeah, just
So,
where did that come from
yeah.
and how does it link to what we're doing at Carbon Copy?
So it's called Civic Revolution, and it's a citizen's guide to how you can think about the place where you live and turning that into almost like the seat of the solution for taking climate action. Um, we are all defined and to a certain extent define ourselves as consumers and also as employees. And some of us are activists too. I'm not, but some are activists. But we're all citizens. And I think we've let our civic life kind of atrophy a little bit. And there's this real hidden power in terms of what we can do at a community level and how we can engage and re-engage in civic life.
Mhm.
And that has a huge potential for how we can really affect greater change in terms of taking climate action. And so, in writing this book and gathering these thoughts, a very natural kind of sequel to just the thinking is the doing. And very much Carbon Copy is about taking action. We've got a real bias for celebrating all those people that are already taking action. And so for me, the book was really gathering my thoughts and then figure out how can I join this movement.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So just kind of going on from that, maybe not everyone who's watching this will know that much about what Carbon Copy actually does.
Mm,
So maybe to kind of explain what the role of the organization is and
yeah.
what we're doing, I guess.
Yeah. So Carbon Copy, we set up a number of founding trustees about a year ago, under a year ago now. And we set it up in order to help convene local councils, community groups, and companies that all share a similar vision for a carbon zero future. And what our aim is to basically inspire and empower more people to take more local climate action through the examples of other people that are already doing great stuff.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that, I found, I'm sure you have as well, is there are so many people that are already doing really amazing stuff. And it's very energizing to hear their stories. These are the kinds of stories that we feel is a big opportunity to shine a light on, so that more people know what's going on. And there's a lot of opportunity here for people to not say reinvent the wheel, but to take what works, to learn from people that have got first-hand experience, and to do something similar in their local area. And it's
Yeah.
all kind of happening in real time in lots of different places at the same time. And so this opportunity for greater collaboration about what's going on, and being able to see what's going on in a more timely fashion, is something that is really at the heart of Carbon Copy and what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what you said about the really good stuff that's already happening, um, and about shining the light on that is really important, not only from the point of view of people who want to do something and want to be inspired, but also those people who are already doing something. It's great for them to be part of Carbon Copy, because what they're doing can then be celebrated, and people can feel like what they're doing, is being impactful, and people can feel like proud of what they're doing in some ways.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that I found really inspiring is, I think last year was a real watershed in terms of local councils around the country declaring a climate emergency. So I alluded to the fact that I was involved in what was happening in my local borough, but there was a lot of councils that declared an environment and climate emergency in 2019, and it's something that maybe not a lot of people know about in terms of the actual coverage, but as of kind of like to date, there's almost 3/4 of all local primary councils, and there's almost 400 of them up and down the country, that have declared a climate emergency. And they've said, we will put together, or they already have put together, a local climate action plan to get to net zero carbon emissions by 2050 or sooner. And that in and of itself is an amazing declaration of intent. What I found even more inspiring was, all the councils that I just mentioned, just over half, have said that we want to get to net zero by 2030, which is 20 years ahead of the national target. And it's so inspiring that we have so many people at a local level that are being that ambitious. And I think personally, from my point of view, I think the risk of putting out a very ambitious target and not necessarily getting quite there is less than the risk of having a target that's much further out, but you're on a much slower trajectory. Because what we are increasingly hearing more and more is we don't have time. 30 years is too far out, given the
Yeah.
escalating crisis that we're seeing day in, day out.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to talk a little bit more about, the kind of the situation that we're in now, and what it must have been like launching a new organization basically at the beginning of a pandemic. And whether you feel like there has been, whether Carbon Copy is what you thought it was going to be when you were planning it, which was before the pandemic, and whether you think the pandemic has been detrimental, or whether there are actually things that have helped about what's been going on.
It's a great question. I think there were some fundamentals that were already happening. I just mentioned, for instance, all the momentum around declaring climate emergencies. That hasn't gone away, and clearly the crisis has not gone away. I think what has happened, obviously, is we're in this awful situation currently that has led to, in the very short term, more urgent needs. having to be met. You know, councils have to deliver essential services, people's livelihoods are at risk, you know, lots of people having to cope with the extra stress. And I think clearly as a result, it means that, you know, focusing on the environment and climate emergency has not been as top of mind as it was before the pandemic. You know, people talk about the silver lining that, you know, there have been some environmental benefits from the fact that, you know, we've had lockdowns, etc. But clearly, you know, a pandemic is the worst possible way to reduce emissions. And the intent has always been that we want to get there by design and not through disaster. And so it's accidental when we see that these emission levels have decreased. And obviously the challenge is, how do we then maintain these? There will be some inevitable bounce back, a lot of experts are saying, but how do we get back not only to the levels that we've seen through the pandemic, but not through design, but also how do we continue to decrease them? And I think what the pandemic has done is it's forced a lot of us to change our habits. And therefore it's given us an opportunity to think a bit differently about how we can build back better. And there's a lot of conversation in that area, because things have changed in a way that perhaps we couldn't have imagined that they would have changed. And they've changed very significantly in a very short space of time. And that in and of itself is an indication that we are able to do these things. We don't have to necessarily do them in response to an immediate crisis. We can see one that's already there and we can plan it. And we can plan it in such a way that there aren't all the hardships that so many people are facing currently in response to the pandemic. So I think there's a real opportunity around how do we build back better and not try and get back to where we were. And I think that's very exciting for all of us, because it really opens up some doors and it opens up some minds that perhaps, you know, we wouldn't have been thinking this way had we not gone through the awful situation that we're currently going through. I also think, just to make one extra point, is for me, one of the lessons that I take away from the response to COVID is it's a catalyst for more decentralization rather than less. When I think about the need for us to build more resilient communities, etc., that speaks to me to more devolution and more decentralization and more empowerment at a local level. And those are all big trends that are happening, and that's directionally where things are going. I think not only in terms of ultimately how we need to respond to COVID, but also how we need to lead with a lot of local leadership in terms of climate action.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, despite all the terrible things that have been going on this year, there have also been some great things happening in the space of like climate action and people working on low carbon solutions. So is there anyone that you think of as your particular eco-hero, or someone that really inspires you and has been doing something really amazing?
Oh gosh. Well, I've got two answers to that. One I would say is, I think almost all of the people that we are showcasing on Carbon Copy are sharing their own initiatives with us. For me, all of those individuals are inspiring, because they are the ones that are leading and taking action right now, today, and they're doing some really great stuff. If I think of someone that is a real figurehead, then for me, it has to be David Attenborough. And actually, I mean, I've watched a lot of his stuff, and he's getting obviously very involved now in encouraging people to take more collective action. And there was a great documentary that was just recently released. I think it was called A Life on This Planet. That was, I think it was like his witness statement about how much has changed over the course of his lifetime. And again, it's just another wake-up call, not because we don't know what's happening, but a wake-up call for us to take more collective action.
Yeah. Yeah. So finally,
Yeah.
just to end on a high note, because you know things have been a little bleak in the
Mm.
last sort of
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
Um, so what gives you hope for the future? What makes you feel hopeful and like things are going to be okay?
Um, there's a saying, and I think in some ways we think about it might have been the wrong way around, which people say that hope leads to action. And for me, it's almost that action leads to hope. And what energizes me so much about Carbon Copy, where we're focusing on the action, is despite what's going on today, immediately, and the awful pandemic that we're facing, despite the massive change that we need to go through, people are taking real steps, and a lot of really exciting action is happening. And for me, their action is leading to hope. And that's what we want to shine a light on, so that more people are seeing this and realizing as well that we have to be the change that we want to see. And that it's not just individual effort now, it's going to be collective effort, and us working in our communities, working with our local councils, working with local companies. We're in this together.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank
That
you.
sounds really formal, doesn't it? Thank you for your time.
I
You've
enjoyed
got the
it.
job. You've got the job. Yeah, I look
Thank you
forward
for asking
to
me.
more of these chats in the future.
Brilliant. Okay.
Okay, bye
Take
everyone.
care. Bye
Bye.
now. Bye bye.